Good afternoon. The May 1st meeting of the WVU Faculty Senate will please come to order. I'd like to begin by welcoming a number of our past, some recent, some not recent, past Faculty Senate chairs who joined us today for the fancily named Biennial Convocation of Faculty Senate Chairs, which thanks to Stan, we were reminded of. It got lost a little. Our institutional knowledge got lost between Judy leaving and COVID leaving. COVID leaving, has COVID left? and COVID. So if the past chairs, Faculty Senate chairs that are in the room with us, if you would please stand and let us recognize you. They shared stories prior to us coming back here. And what my takeaway is that this is an organism that is built on many people's long service and knowledge, and that everybody had good things. And except for Roy Nutter, everybody had challenging things. He has no memory of anything challenging. So I think he probably needs to be elected back as chair at some point because everyone else had their own individual challenges. Thank you all for being here. The minutes of the April 1st Faculty Senate meeting have been distributed as a link in your agenda. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? You good? Thank you. Hearing none, the minutes from the April 1st meeting are approved as written. The next item is my report. First, regarding the presidential search, I have a few things to report. On April the 19th, I received the official invitation from BOG Ad Hoc Governance Committee Chair Patrice Harris to submit a slate of faculty candidates for consideration by the BOG for appointment to the search committee. Faculty have 3 seats on the search committee, and Patrice has invited me to submit a slate of at least 6 by May the 10th. The Shared Governance Committee has been working since then to collect nominations and curate the slate, and Scott Wayne will report on their process in a few minutes. The Ad Hoc Governance Committee will review the submissions from all constituencies, including our slate, and will select the search committee members from the list of nominees. The selected individuals will be contacted to confirm their willingness and their time availability to serve and to abide by the confidentiality provisions for the search committee. The search committee nominees will be presented to the full Board of Governors, who will complete a final review and endorse a final slate, a final list of search committee members at a special BOG meeting on May the 29th. That meeting date and time were just decided on, so I don't think it's been published yet, but you might want to put that on your calendar. A subcommittee of the Board of Governors has been identified to vet, rank, and recommend a search firm to the board. I'm serving on that subcommittee, and the process is now well underway. And I want to say it's top of mind for me as we go through the process of selecting a search committee, that we select one that understands the importance of the faculty voice, understands about shared governance, and has respect for that in the general process. So that's been one of the primary things I've been looking for so far. If there's something specific that you think should be considered in selecting a search firm, please email me. And if you could do that as soon as possible, that would be great. This process is moving along fairly quickly. So I'd be glad to receive that and consider it. The last update related to the presidential search is to inform you that we've established a presidential search page on the Faculty Senate webpage, where we will post faculty-focused information about the search and provide a link to the BOG search page for easy access. So please share that with your constituents. The main thing that's on there at this point, other than the link to the BOG page, is a copy of the letter that I received from Dr. Harris requesting the slate of candidates. Regarding the work on the university P&T guidelines, the first draft was delivered to faculty welfare, as I think I reported to you last time, for their review. And at this time, Emily Murphy, who's out of town, is online, and I will ask her to give us a brief report from her committee on their process. Emily? Is she present? She's not present. 501 Fussett Emily. Okay. Well, I'll tell you. Is there anyone from that committee here? Faculty welfare who would like to, Scott, would you? Please, thank you.
So, we discussed it one time with the faculty senate leadership when y'all presenting it. We discussed it again after that to kind of go through some basics of how it differs and does not from what was presented beforehand. The major thing right now is just putting together a system for broader faculty feedback. I think where we are in the process is that the committee is of a position that it's already done all it's probably for the committee itself to do. So now we're going to be asking for faculty feedback more broadly. We still don't have that survey quite finished yet, but that should be happening quite soon.
Okay, thank you, Scott. The faculty senate leadership team that's working on, it's actually not that team. It's a subcommittee of the faculty executive committee that's working on the revision to the Senate Constitution, has had 2 additional meetings since last we met and is meeting again this week. The committee has made a commitment to get a first draft finished, regardless of how long it takes us into the summer, so that when we return in the fall, we'll be ready for to hand that off to faculty, shared governance, who will then be providing their feedback, and we'll be planning also for broad faculty input at that point. For those who are previous chairs who are visiting, especially those who are very actively involved in the last revision, the Constitution has been stress test to the max in the last 3 years. And so as we've relied on it more and more, we've realized there are pieces in there that we really need to be clarified. And it's, when we have to revert to Robert's rules, sometimes that doesn't meet our particular tailored needs. So that's really our focus. That's what started that initiative. We've added Evelyn Martin, who is from Tech, and she's a member of the she's a member of the Shared Governance Committee, and she is the Constitution Subcommittee Chair on Scott's committee. We added her for some additional continuity since we were going to have to stretch our timeline into the fall. She's technically an ex officio member because she is not a non-voting ex officio member because she is not a member of executive committee, but she's already making great contributions. Regarding the university's leadership's reviews of administrative units, today you will hear a summary of the last batch of these reviews, including the president's office, the provost's office, and all the dean's offices, including the Health Sciences Center schools. After today's meeting, summaries of each review will be posted on the Faculty Senate website, along with the other reviews for which we've already received presentations. With this last batch today, 34 primary non-academic reviews have been conducted, and every administrative unit of the university has been reviewed. Furthermore, President Gee has decided to create an ongoing 3-year rotating review process to make reviews of these areas routine, just like we do with academic programs. And I consider this an extremely healthy step. And once again, I thank President Gee and the administrative leaders who participated in this process. At this time, I'd like to recognize the leadership from Student Government Association. Madison Santmeyer, Student Government President, and Logan Pierce, the SGA Liaison to Faculty Senate, who have requested to share for our information a recently passed SGA resolution.
Hi, everyone. Like Frankie said, I'm Madison Santmeyer. I'm going to read this on behalf of Daniel Madden. We worked together on it, but he's the senator who wrote this. So it's an assembly resolution to reduce third-party platforms. So I'm just going to start from the beginning. Whereas the WVU mission statement states, as a land-grant institution, the faculty, staff, and students at West Virginia University commit to creating a diverse and inclusive culture that advances education, healthcare, and prosperity for all by providing access and opportunity. And whereas the SGA mission statement states, we, the students of West Virginia University, desire to preserve within our university and the Student Government Association an atmosphere that helps to foster an open exchange of ideas with civil discussion, inquiry, and self-expression, and to help ensure that the personal freedoms and general welfare of the students within our university are protected. And whereas to be a student government association that serves the students, West Virginia University, and the state of West Virginia by promoting inclusion, creating a campus that can accommodate everyone, and developing innovative partnerships with students, faculty, staff, and other key stakeholders. And whereas SGA defines third-party platforms as any online platform that comes at an added cost to students and that are redundant to currently available platforms that come at no added cost to students. And whereas tuition for students on the main WVU campus has increased 168% for out-of-state students and has increased 54% for in-state students since 2008. And whereas a survey conducted of 1,000 college students found that 61% had less than $1,000 saved. And whereas the average WVU student is expected to spend $900 per year for textbooks. And whereas SGA is unsure whether third-party platforms are included in the cost of attendance. And whereas course fees for third-party platforms increase the cost of attendance for students at WVU. And whereas West Virginia University's Board of Governors approved a 3% tuition increase on June 23rd, 2023. And whereas platforms such as some platforms cost up to $39 per class per semester, and similar platforms exist at no cost to students. And whereas many third-party platforms are nearly identical to free student software offered by the university. Therefore, be it resolved by the Student Assembly of West Virginia University, Section 1, WVSJ encourages the university to reduce the use of third-party platforms such as Backpack and TopPad in classrooms. Section 2, WUSGA encourages the university to create a list of recommended third-party platforms that are free and provide educational value. Section 3, WUSGA encourages the university to consider adding required third-party platforms to textbook bundles and deals offered by the bookstore. Section 4, WUSGA encourages faculty to revisit their use of paid third-party platforms when a free to student alternative is available. And it was forwarded to mandates below, which Frankie has a copy of if you want to send to the faculty. Just for some background, so myself and my vice president Brogan Dozier ran on this when we were elected over a year ago now, and we talked to students about this for the whole entire time we've been elected and prior to being elected, and we just got outstanding support for this, and also just frustration. I haven't, just being very blunt, we haven't seen any examples where any of these platforms have any added educational value to the students. And we'd be happy to hear out if there are, but just of the ones that we've heard of and from the students we've talked to, we haven't heard or seen any of that. And it's now, we think it's an effect of COVID as well, as everyone gets more comfortable with online learning, but we just ask that everyone really takes that into consideration. Also, if you're doing that, also report it to Higher Ed Men or to the bookstore and all of that, because fees have to be reported. So it's hard for us, so we don't know how far and wide this problem actually goes. We're just going off of the experiences, especially of SGA members. I've had to deal with this, Daniel, a bunch of other people have, and we just think that it's really important. It's something that all students are facing, and not just here, but also at across the state, and I imagine across the country as well. So, wanna add anything?
I think Madison covered everything pretty well. I think in this upcoming administration, we will definitely be looking more towards this. College affordability is always a platform and priority that SGA looks at. So I think that in the future, I think collaborating with like the Advisory Council for Students or creating a focus group would be a good idea, just so we have a good foundation to go off of based on what's affordable and how students can access an educational platform without having to pay an additional cost. So I think this is something that we'll definitely be looking towards the future. And with Charlie's new administration, I think this will be something that will be pretty productive and we could get implemented very well.
We also they'll have an academic affairs legislative committee as well. And I know you all have your faculty senate tech committee that will probably work really closely with this. And we brought it to them before. But just looking forward to working with that at hopefully WU level, but also spreading it across the state and kind of being the leaders on that and on pushing more affordable options for students because we really haven't seen the benefit for it, just in all honesty. So I just really think everyone needs to take a hard look at what you're doing and what you're requiring for your students, especially with those kind of platforms. And there's so much open education resources with OERs and other ways that you can do that, especially with with inflation and how expensive everything is. It's when you can do a discussion board or anything on eCampus, please just do it on eCampus. The students do not prefer the fancier platform when they have to
Are
pay
there
for it.
questions for
So.
Maddie and Logan?
Can I just add one thing? And our intention is not to step on Faculty Senate's toes. I mean, we're here to collaborate with you. This is why the position of the Internal Senate's liaison was created. I think it's been very productive to work with you all this year. So it's not our intention to decrease your autonomy in the classroom. I think you'll still have a lot of room to, implement curriculum and material. But from a student perspective, I think it's important to have affordability and have affordable options because college already is a hard thing to afford for many students, especially in Appalachia. So I think this is about collaboration, not oversight of you guys. So yeah, we appreciate your willingness to work with us and thank you guys.
Understood. Thanks for that caveat, Logan. And
no
the liaison position has been very helpful, and we ask Charlie to please keep that. And I think it's opened up a lot of good
Yeah.
communication. I will say academic technology has been working on this issue for a few years. They've done 2-3 years ago, did some deep research on this. Those files are being brought forward. That data is being brought forward. And we've already had with the current chair of academic technology and Evan Witters is picking up the issue. So I think you're going to see some movement on this. Thank you all for
Thank you.
coming. So we, as is our tradition, our practice rather, if we don't have anything pressing, we cancel the June Faculty Senate meeting. So the June meeting is hereby canceled. You're welcome. We are interested in sponsoring a budget update sometime this summer. There are a lot of moving parts right now, which is why we haven't received that yet. But just know that that's on our agenda, and Diana concurs with that if it's after July 1, but we're hoping for that so we can hear about the actuals on the fiscal year 24 as well as the budget for fiscal year 25. The last thing on my report is that I would like to acknowledge our faculty colleagues who are departing WVU as a result of academic transformation. This includes our tenured colleagues who were RIFT, our pre-tenure colleagues who were not continued, our non-tenure track, TAP, SAP, CAP, and library colleagues who were not reviewed, those who are retiring, and those who are leaving voluntarily. Please join me in expressing our gratitude for their service to WVU and well wishes for the future. Next, we'll hear a report from Cindy Trickett-Shockey, Chair of the Curriculum Committee.
The meeting I've been waiting for, the last one. I would like to give you a report for the curriculum committee. It's almost boring because there's not much going on, but if you reviewed Annex 1, you saw that there were 13 new courses that were proposed. There were 20 course changes in Annex 2. And we also had one program and 2 program changes that were found on the agenda also. So, Madam Chairman, I'm asking for these to be approved in a bundle motion. Annex 1, 2, and the new programs and program changes.
Okay, bundling new courses, course changes, new programs and program changes into a single votable item. Are there questions for Cindy? Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving Annex 1, Annex 2, and the new and changed programs, please raise your hand. Okay, please lower your hands. All those opposed, please raise your hands. Okay, thank you. All curriculum items are approved, Cindy. Do
Thank
have
you. We
other-
have 14 deletions, and that makes us all done, I believe, with transformation.
Fantastic. And I just want to say, Corey did a total, Cindy. I don't know if you want to hear it. Cindy and her committee processed 76 new and changed programs, 191 new courses, and 338 course changes. An unusually high year for academic because of academic transformation. Time for a nap, huh, Cindy? Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Mary Beth Angeline, Chair of the General Education Foundation Committee.
I have no report today, but I'd like to recognize Lisa DiBartolomeo from Eberly.
Lisa DiBartolomeo, Eberly College of Arts and Sciences, and I'm going to present a motion. And it will be about stopping any further revisions to the General Education Foundations. And here are a few of the reasons why I think that should happen. Academic transformation has already disrupted both curriculum and personnel in many units. And given the new budget model's focus on charging units for space and allocating resources and revenue based on College of Instruction, JEF changes have a massive knock-on effect, and they have to be carefully and thoughtfully considered rather than being pushed through by a lame duck administration. Any further curricular changes, especially something as central to our educational mission as general education, should be left for a new president and their chosen team to develop in consultation with all stakeholders, not presented as a fait accompli by the outgoing administration. And therefore, I move to halt any and all further changes to the General Education Foundation's curriculum, save for minor alterations resulting from the normal course of scheduling and staffing.
So there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion?
Matt Valenti from Statler College. This is probably more of a question than a comment, but for Lisa, as far as freezing the GEF, like where would that dividing line be? So for instance, if there were new courses that came up, perhaps to compensate for some courses that were canceled, could those new courses be added to the GEF, or are you proposing kind of a complete freeze to the extent of not adding any new courses to the list?
I'm certainly open to amending my motion to include new additions to the Gen Ed.
Offer that as a friendly amendment, that maybe the intent of the motion, as I understand it, is to not kind of change the GEF in terms of what it encompasses and the requirements, but we could add courses to it as needed. So for instance, like the GEF committee would still operate, and we could still add classes. I don't know how I can word that as an amendment, but maybe.
You're asking that the idea of change be clearly defined.
I think we can modify it, on what I gave Corey to include any necessary changes or additions. And I can do that back. Or we could simply change it to, I move to halt any and all further structural changes to the general education foundation's curriculum. And that would cover, I think, that. So I modify my motion, which I repeat again, I move to halt any and all further structural changes to the general education foundation's curriculum.
There's someone online who'd like to participate in discussion.
This is Emily Murphy. I'm in Atlanta for a meeting, but we're having or I'm at least having a really hard time hearing those that are at the mic. So I'm not sure if you can just speak more directly in the mic because we're having a hard time hearing you online. From the side
Thank
mics,
you.
not you, Frankie.
So you have to get closer to the mic and speak up. Yeah.
Can you hear me now, Emily?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and Dave just pointed out that we need to have a timeline on this. So I further amend my motion. I move to halt any and all further structural changes to the General Education Foundation's curriculum until at least 2025,
When in 2025?
fall 2025. There we go.
And what do you mean by fall? Do you mean no changes through June 30th of 2025?
Sure. Sure. Everybody cool with that?
And there's somebody on, is there some question online? You seconded, are the revisions satisfactory for you? Okay. Who's online? I do have one point that I'm not sure about, and that's whether your motion is in order, because I'm not sure we have the authority to do that.
The General Education Foundations Committee is a Senate committee, and that is definitionally within the Senate's purview.
So I don't have the charge in front of me. Does it say? I mean, you know, this has been our ongoing discussion for a few years. Who owns the Jeff?
I would like to recognize Professor Steve Kite to speak to this issue because
Please.
he looks like he has something to say.
Professor Kite?
Beginning with the GEC and the GEF, it has been the Senate's baby. I don't know who else would run a general education curriculum other than the faculty.
So the curriculum itself is not what I'm referring to, Professor Kite. The discussions that are being had is that this year was a cleaning up year, and starting next year would be discussion. And this has all been in discussion with the Jeff Committee. This hasn't been outside the Jeff Committee, but there's been ongoing discussions about the future of the general education program. And so that's what I'm not sure about, because
well, does
Jeff
it not currently reside with the Faculty Senate as it has for the last 15 years?
The curriculum
The
does,
Je-
but she's talking about the overall structure, if I understand it. And that's what I'm just not sure about. Is that within
that was established by the Faculty Senate. Was it not? I was the one
It's
who.
charge number 6. That was my only question. So
Yeah.
we're clear.
Okay.
We're clear. Okay, let's see. Any other discussion? Any online? Okay. All those in favor of, Lisa, please correct me if I don't get this right. All those in favor of halting structural changes to the general education, and you said
Foundations curriculum.
it's the general education program, and I think that's where we're stuck because the
Current curriculum.
the
is
charge says general
called-
education program.
Okay. The
Right.
current curriculum is called the General Education Foundations.
The curriculum, but the
Yes.
program is called the general education program. And I think by structural, that's what you're referring to. In other words, you can't change Jeff 1, Jeff 2, Jeff 3. Courses can come and go with the Jeff committee, but you're saying you
Correct.
can't change the fundamental structure.
Correct.
Okay, I think that's what's called the general education program. Lou, is that correct? Okay. Are you okay with that?
Sure.
Okay. So all those in favor of halting any structural changes to the general education program until June 30th of 2025, please raise your hand. Count is underway, if you could bear with us. $15 online. $15 online. Okay, please lower your hands. All those opposed, please raise your hands. Two opposed online. Yeah, the motion passes. Thank you. Next, we'll have a report from Marina Galvez Peralta, Teaching and Assessment Committee Chair. But we are making one adjustment to the agenda, which I should have announced at the top, because we would like to hear her report after the Campus Carry presentation from Travis and his team, because her report has to do with things related to Campus Carry. Any objections to that agenda shift? Okay. All right. The next report would be from Leslie Cottrell, but I understand she does not have a report today. So we will be hearing next from Olga Bryaika Kolina, and I'm sure I massacred that. I'm so sorry. Inclusion and Diversity Committee on the teaching toolkit. Thank you,
Wonderful.
Olga.
Thank you,
My
Frankie.
apologies.
If you'd like, I can pronounce it with
Please, please. do.
Ukrainian and French accent, because first is my maiden name, Bruyaka, and the last one is my husband's name, Kolinyu. So here it
you.
is, Olga Bruyaka. Hello, everybody. I'm glad to represent the WVU Inclusion and Diversity Committee to talk about the toolkit for equitable classroom programs. And our chair, Stephanie Hines, couldn't be here, so she asked me to talk about that. So I will start with really the question, what this toolkit is. So it's an online tool that is a collection of methods, practices, and sources for all those who teach at WVU, right? And so the toolkit contains sources of support for your big and small teaching challenges related to diversity and inclusion inside and outside of the classroom. And these examples of the tools include, for instance, suggested topics and resources for class discussions, some cases, materials, articles, games, exercises, role plays. There are some academic research that faculty and those who teach at WVU can choose from. And there are some suggestions for writing the syllabus, for writing the inclusivity and diversity statements in the syllabus, and also some practical tools to maybe solve some issues related to interactions in the classroom, helping students, etc. We encourage everybody to go online and check out this toolkit. The idea is that this toolkit is generative, meaning that we are soliciting input from everybody so that it's a living toolkit. So we can add new ideas, add new tools, add new support. A few things about why it is important, why we as a committee developed this toolkit. Well, we all know that college students are under a lot of stress, and so are faculty and everyone, of course. But it's important for students to feel welcome and included. And we really wanted to provide anybody who teaches at WVU with some sources and support to make this happen. And so I think healthy environment in the classroom is very important to achieve our educational goals and have really psychologically safe environment. Again, this toolkit, the whole idea of developing this toolkit is not entirely new to the higher education. We consulted as a committee with toolkits from other universities. We solicited via survey inputs from faculty. At our university, we collaborated with Teaching Commons, the WVU Teaching Commons. So it's really a result of all the suggestions, and we really hope that this tool will be further improved and developed. Again, any comments and suggestions are welcome. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you. Questions for Olga? This is the fruition of 3 or 4 years of work. Yes, Olga?
Yeah,
Okay.
like a lot of effort. went in
Yes,
there.
yes,
Thank
indeed.
you.
And I'm sorry if I missed it. Did you say where we can find that? Is that on the faculty.wvu.edu? Okay. And it's also linked in the agenda, I think, right, Corey? Okay. Okay, great. Please spread the word on that. That's excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, next we'll hear an update from the Shared Governance Committee, Chair Scott Wayne, and he's going to present here.
All right, thank you. Scott Wayne, Statler College of Engineering and Mineral Resources, Chair of the Shared Governance Committee. So I've reported a few times the activities the Shared Governance Committee have been working on surrounding the search for the next president of West Virginia University. Today, I'm going to focus on the selection of the slate of recommended search committee members that the committee has identified. I want to talk just a little bit about where to advance this guy. The criteria that we were looking at in selecting the representatives. So guiding criteria, we wanted representation across the research, teaching, service, community engagement, and clinical mission areas of the university. Representation of a diverse range of disciplines and colleges within our group, representation of at least one of the branch campuses, a range of years of service, and academic ranks within the representatives of the faculty senate. And we did look at those who had been active in faculty governance activities as part of that criteria. Those were guiding criteria, not hard and fast rules. We're selecting a relatively small slate of individuals, so it is hard to check all of those boxes in a limited number of representatives. Again, as Frankie said, we will make a recommendation. Dr. Patrice Harris asked faculty to provide a minimum of 6 nominees, and they will select the 3 representatives from that slate. We surveyed the faculty to express interest. I believe we had a total of 126 responses to that survey. We categorized the faculty. I had asked them to identify their primary or two primary areas of activity within the university. So we categorized those into research focused, teaching focused, and then the service clinical engagement focused areas. We divided the committee into three working groups to evaluate each of those three areas and evaluate the applicants. And then I do want to point out that some of the shared governance committee members were had put in an application to serve on the search committee. Any of those members who were who had applied were excluded from discussions in which their applications could potentially be discussed, and that included the final discussion of the slate of nominees. We provided the applications to the committee prior to the meeting, and then during that meeting, we broke into breakout rooms and asked those working groups to identify candidates in each of those three focus areas. The top applicants coming out of those breakout rooms were then brought forward for discussion by the committee as a whole. And the committee finally agreed on the final list of nominees based on those guiding principles that I spoke of earlier. And then we grouped the nominees into the 6 top nominees, and we also had 6 alternates that we identified. So the 6 top candidates, just go through quickly. Jennifer Walker, an assistant professor in College of Creative Arts. She's in the research and teaching area, does work in music and the arts field. Daniel Brewster is a teaching instructor, sociology and anthropology from the Eberly College with a teaching focus in the humanities field. Lauren Prinzo is an assistant professor in extension. Her focus is service and teaching in community engagement fields. John McWilliams is an associate professor in physics and astronomy from the Eberly College with an emphasis in research in the STEM fields. Emily Murphy, an associate professor of coaching and teaching studies from College of Applied Human Sciences in the service and teaching focus within community engagement and outreach. And Assad Deveri is a professor in electrical and computer engineering from West Virginia Institute of Technology, focusing in service and teaching. So that is the slate of the top 6 faculty that were identified by the alternate nominees. Andrew Nix is an associate professor in the Mechanical and Materials and Aerospace Engineering Department within the Statler College. Focuses research and teaching in the STEM fields. Christopher Ramazan is an assistant professor in cybersecurity in the Chambers College, also focused in research and teaching in the business and STEM fields. Catherine Moffat, professor in pediatric infectious diseases from the School of Medicine, focus in clinical and research in the healthcare fields. Anne-Marie Hibbert is a professor in finance from the Chambers College with research and teaching focus in business fields. David Mersing, teaching assistant professor in the chemistry department, the Eberly College, emphasis in teaching and service in the STEM field. And finally, Robert Daly is professor in animal science and animal and nutritional sciences from the Davis College, emphasis in teaching in the STEM. So that's the slate in total of the candidates out of the 126 applicants that the committee evaluated. So I would like to make a motion on behalf of the Shared Governance Committee that the Faculty Senate approve the slate of search committee nominees and the slate of alternative nominees and direct the Faculty Senate Chair to forward both lists to the board.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of, I'm sorry. No. Okay. All those in favor of approving the slate and alternates, please raise your hand. 21 online. Thank you. Please lower your hands. All those opposed? None online. The motion carries and the slate and the alternates are approved. I'll be reporting or transmitting the slate to Dr. Harris, Chair of the Ad hoc BOG Committee, tomorrow. And then as I said earlier, all the nominees will be reviewed and a final search committee announced by the BOG tentatively on May the 29th. Yeah, thank you all. And thanks to the Shared Governance Committee, they have met a lot in the past month since Dr. Harris put that forward, and she put it forward with a very aggressive timeline. So we thank you and your committee. And Scott likes to schedule meetings at 8 a.m. So we double thank the committee. Next, the Sustainability Committee has asked for time to present a resolution from their committee, which you can find in Annex 5 of your agenda. So at this time, we'll hear from Kristen Steffen, Chair of Sustainability. And I did say Kristen, and it is Kirsten, so my apologies. She's online?
I'm here.
Okay. Hi, Kirsten.
Hello. So I'm here to provide you some context first for the resolution before asking for your vote. Achieving sustainability. Sustainability practices, in fact, that will safeguard the natural environment on which humankind depends is the greatest challenge of our time. And it's not only a moral, social, and economic imperative of global importance, it also has the potential to impact WVU's bottom line through student enrollment, as you've all read under the 4th item on the resolution. And with the turmoil of the COVID pandemic, during which a first such sustainability resolution has been passed and likely forgotten, and with WVU's academic transformation, many important issues have, understandably so, taken a back seat. This present resolution before you seeks to elevate sustainability efforts at WVU to a higher level of priority. And with that, I move that the Faculty Senate approves the resolution to increase sustainability efforts at West Virginia University.
Very well. So there's a motion to approve the resolution. Is there any discussion or any questions for Kirsten? Thank you. All in favor of approving the resolution, please raise your hand. Online. Thank you. Please lower your hands. Any opposed? None online. Thank you. The resolution passes, Kirsten, and we thank your committee for your work. And I'm sure Diana will have it on her list to put on her agenda for fall to make sure it's not forgotten that this happened at the end of this year. Please thank your committee for us.
Thank you.
The next item would be a report from our representative state governor, Eloise Elliott, but she says she has no report. And so we'll move on to our representative board of governors, Stan Howman.
So the board met on April 12th. We received reports from the classified staff rep as well as the student government. We also adopted in final form BOG Rule 5.14 on campus carry and BOG Rule 3.5 on employee leave. We had a very impressive presentation on the business of cybersecurity from Dr. Chris Ramazan and some of his cybersecurity students. Not surprisingly, we spent a lot of time in executive session talking about budget and the presidential search. And then today we had a special meeting. We spent some time talking about the search process, the committee, and then we also, in public session, passed the presidential search rule. The next meeting will be May 29th, where we will, I'm sure, receive further information about the presidential search. That is my report.
Questions for Stan? Very well. Thank you, Stan. Next, we'll hear from President Yee.
Thank you very much. First of all, before we get started, I want to just say that the provost is really quite ill, and he's not going to be able to be with us today. But we have our vice provost here, and certainly other members of the team. Anyone who has any questions, I want to start off because you canceled the June meeting. Is that right? Right. So therefore, this is my last chance to say I want to thank you, Frankie, who has done an extraordinarily important job in the time of which our university has faced significant challenges. And Frankie, you will continue to serve on our board of governors, but as a leader of our faculty, I think that without a doubt, you've done an outstanding job. I would welcome everyone giving you a round of applause. Very well done. And Diana, welcome. I think that's the word, welcome. And so we're going to hand that to you as I guess it's as of July 1, isn't it? That's right. Stan, where is Stan Heilemann? Stan has been with us for 8 years as a representative on our board of governors. Has done an outstanding job. Is highly respected by our board. They listen very carefully to what Stan has to say, and more importantly, Stan has devoted time and energy beyond the call of duty. So Stan, I appreciate that, and I think he deserves a round of applause also. Would you please do that? So as we approach the year's end, we are celebrating an exciting beginning of launching the educational journey of the newest foundation scholars. In fact, on Wednesday, I'm going to go visit with one of them in Clay County High School. We try to go and visit with as many of our foundation scholars as we possibly can. And these are recipients, of course, of the highest academic scholarship. I will say that these are students who could have gone anywhere. We have one student who was admitted to Yale, another who was admitted to Penn, and several who were admitted to other Ivy League institutions, Cornell, Brown, etc. But they're coming with us. So let me just give you the names of those. Emma Akin-Annan from Woodrow Wilson High School, who plans to bridge her passion for biology and technology by becoming a family physician. Isaac Brown from Clay County, and I'll see him on Wednesday, who will major in political science and mathematics and hopes to serve in student government. Leah McCarthy, who, by the way, has a brother here who is a foundation scholar, and then has his father was a foundation scholar also, who is a very talented musician, who would like to study politics in Germany and music in the Caribbean. Claire Talbot from Elkins High School is majoring in environmental soil and water sciences and foresees a career protecting the ecosystems of the Appalachian Mountains. And Zadie Worley from Liberty High School in Raleigh County, who plans to become a pediatric neurologist after seeing a young family member struggle with epilepsy. Now, I know that they will come here, they'll find great opportunities, they'll find a world-class faculty, they'll find great mentors, and that is the reason that they have come here and that the university is so attractive to such students. One amazing example of our internationally recognized faculty is, of course, Mara McLaughlin, our fabulous astrophysicist, who has been selected as a new member of the National Academy of Sciences. As we all know, one of the highest honors in the scientific world. She is our university's first faculty member to join this prestigious group. McLaughlin is co-director of NanoGrav, which recently announced evidence for gravitational waves with periods of years to decades that has never previously been observed. She also helped to discover fast radio bursts, intense, unexplained pulses of energy coming from billions of light years away that popped for mere milliseconds. Last year, she and Duncan Lorimer received the Shaw Prize, described as the Nobel Prize of the East. West Virginia House of Delegates Speaker, West Virginia Roger Hanshaw, who himself holds a PhD in chemistry, congratulated her with these words: "Our state is home to a lot of exceptional people, but with the news that one of our own has been elected to the National Academy of Sciences, West Virginia truly has reached an impressive landmark," to WVU astrophysicist Mara McLaughlin. Only 2,617 people have achieved this honor, and it's something every West Virginian should be proud to know and say that one of our own has achieved. To help more West Virginians achieve their full potential, access to higher education, of course, is crucial. That is why this year the botched rollout of the new FAFSA, you've heard me say this before, the botched rollout of the new FAFSA formed by the U.S. Department of Education has been incredibly frustrating. They finally did admit that they had a problem. They fired Richard Cordray, whom I know well, and FAFSA is the key to unlocking financial aid for our students, and this year's completion rate in our state alone is down about 40%, if you can think about that. So in response, Governor Justice has declared a state of emergency, temporarily suspending the requirement for students to complete the FAFSA in order to qualify for the state's largest financial aid programs. While we are determining further answers and gathering more details for students and their families, we do know that this includes exceptions for the Promise Scholarship, the West Virginia Higher Education Grant, and the HEAPS grants. I really want to express my appreciation to the governor, which will help our students receive aid to further their education in West Virginia. Because the emergency declaration only removes the FAFSA requirement for state-funded aid, we still urge students to complete the FAFSA if they have not already done so. Our team at the West Virginia University Hub is working very diligently, but this has been an increasingly difficult problem. And because of that, we are not quite certain what our enrollment will look like in the fall. And while the outlook is negative for many other colleges and universities, I'm happy to report that we have received formal notification that Fitch, the bonding agency, has reaffirmed our previous bonding rating. And they were very much interested in our academic transformation process. And we're impressed with our outcomes and ability to address and meet financial challenges. We did not avoid making difficult but necessary decisions, and as a result, we are better positioned to weather the headwinds facing much of higher education, as we've seen recently. As we head into the future, we must always remember that we are West Virginia's university. Proof is in a project capturing the stories of extraordinary mountaineers and their life-changing experiences here, Mountaineer Spotlight, something that I'm enjoying watching. These stories feature faculty, students, staff, and alumni, and they often appear in Mountaineer e-News and on WVU Today. You can find the latest one on the WVU Today homepage and click a link to see more. So some recent stories, just to give you some highlights of some of the people that we're featuring. Eloise Elliott, who's a Ware Distinguished Professor in the College of Applied Human Sciences, didn't have anything to say today, by the way. I don't know what have you been doing, Eloise? She has been inducted into an elite organization for physical education, sport, and dance professionals. Luis Arroyo and Tatiana Trejos, researchers in the Department of Forensics and Investigative Science and partners in life, who first met in Costa Rica and arrived on our campus with a little help from Destiny. A third-year law student, Parker D'Antoni, who received national recognition for his outstanding performance at the student trial competition, being named best overall attorney out of 22 teams who were representing some of the best law schools in the country. And Zabria Robson, who received her undergraduate degree and master's in clinical rehabilitation and mental health, and now helps people as a behavioral health counselor in the community care process in West Virginia. So If you have any suggestions for Mountaineers to be featured, we're going to tell a lot of stories over the next month or so, because we want to make certain people know what we are doing at our university and the quality of the people who are here. So saying that, Madam Chair, I'm open to any questions. Seeing or hearing none, I will feed it back to you.
Thank you for your report and for your kind comments, President Gee. As President Gee mentioned, Provost Reed is sick, and I can attest to that. I talked to her. She sounds terrible. So I'm glad she's not here and is taking care of herself. I understand that Lou Slimak is going to be presenting in her stead.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Lou Slimak, Associate Provost, with a update on the academic transformation process at the regional campuses. Before I begin, I'd like to recognize and thank the various people whose work went into this process. That's the extended Provost's office team, the academic leadership at the regional campuses, the faculty at those regional campuses who have been tremendously engaged from the beginning, and specifically Robin Shannon, who has informed and supported every step of this process. As an overview and a reminder, we announced that at the regional campuses, we would have an academic transformation process in November of 2023, and that process was formally initiated in January of this year. The goals for the program review process, a subcomponent of academic transformation, were focused on improving student success at those institutions. And by student success, we mean retention, persistence, and completion, which we felt had such tremendous range for improvement that they would lead to all the financial improvement we could possibly hope for, but also improving curricular design in support of improving student success. Additionally, there were ad hoc committees at each location that worked on campus-specific initiatives that were developed with the faculty and their academic leadership. To that end, Robin and I have supported those campuses and their leadership and their faculty in bi-weekly meetings with the campus leadership and their leadership team, which included the faculty assembly chair at each campus. We are at the point in the process today where preliminary recommendations have been made and communicated, appealed, and resolved. That has been posted. All of the data, process, updates, and reports have been posted to each campus's academic transformation website. And those final preliminary recommendations we carry to the Board of Governors for their June meeting for a vote. To give you more specific feedback, at Potomac State College, we reviewed 8 programs consisting of 27 total majors. I've put programs in quote. Academic programs at Potomac State are a little differently defined because of their associate's nature. So we grouped those in areas that we determined with their academic leadership and faculty of similar programs. So the engineering majors were a program. The physical education majors were a program. So that's why they are in quotes like that. And the preliminary recommendations of those programs, as you can see here, were 1 to continue at the current level of activity, 6 with specific action, and 1 to be developed for a cooperative program, so some form of merged curriculum. There were no appeals of any of the preliminary recommendations at Potomac State College, and no faculty were recommended for reduction as a result of this process. I'm not going to belabor you with every single item on this slide, but these are the major level recommendations. So we had 8 programs, but then there were recommendations made for each of the majors in that area. I think what I would call out will be the 8 majors recommended for a cooperative program in engineering, where we saw a tremendous amount of curricular overlap and actually almost not enough distinction to feel ethically good about marketing those programs the way they were. We also asked the engineering program simultaneously develop an intent to plan for an AS in engineering technology, and that the 2 majors that were discontinued had no students enrolled in either major for several years. And the BAS and SAGE, we asked to also Bachelor's of Applied Science provide us with an intent to plan for a replacement in a Bachelor's of Applied Science in Agriculture. We also at Potomac State reviewed the 4 ad hoc committee reports and gave them the final recommendations. Again, these reports and our recommendation response to the committee and community are up on their websites. But that was a 2+2 articulation agreement committee looking to what the resources necessary and what the best partners for 2+2 articulation agreements for Potomac State would be. A faculty workload review committee, a committee that recommended a move to a professional advising at Potomac State. And the last committee was an online GEF course committee to expand online GEF course offerings at Potomac State that we put on hold due to personnel changes at WVU Online earlier this spring. At the WVU Institute of Technology, WVU Tech, 23 programs were reviewed. And you can see the preliminary recommendations we have made here. 2 would be continued at the current level of activity. 15 continued with specific action. 3 recommended for development of a cooperative program, and 3 for discontinuance. We did have 3 programs appeal their preliminary recommendation. Those appeals have been held and completed. 1 appeal was granted in full, 1 appeal was granted in part, and 1 appeal was denied. No faculty were recommended for reduction as a result of this process. Again, at the major level, the primary thing I would call out on this, again, without reading it all to you, is that very top line that we recommended 13 programs increase their curricular flexibility. And by what we mean there is building in more general electives to make it easier for students to move into programs from within Tech, but also to transfer to WVU Tech from outside of the institution as well. 2 of their 3 ad hoc committee reports have been given final recommendations. The reason for the promotion and tenure revision committee not having a final recommendation is this work was started and underneath the banner of academic transformation, but is an ongoing conversation with the provost's office and the members of the provost's office who can bring that to fruition. We have since given final reports back on the RBA expansion committee and the scheduling committee at WVU Tech. Questions from me? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lou. And just to reiterate, there are no faculty reductions at either campus. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. Next, we are going to hear a report from Aaron Newmeyer, Associate Vice President for Strategic Partnerships, and John Schomp, Barnes & Noble Education Regional Manager on Barnes & Noble First Day Textbook Option.
Good afternoon. I'm going to spend a few minutes today talking to you guys about the Barnes & Noble First Day Complete program. We announced this about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. As the university continues to look at opportunities to increase access and affordability for our students, this is a program that Barnes & Noble brought to us. In partnership with Barnes & Noble, we've launched a First Day Complete, which will begin in fall of 24. It's a new course material delivery program for undergraduate students only on our Morgantown, Beckley, and Kaiser campuses. Students will rent their course materials at a lower rate, which is a flat fee per semester. It looks to be about a 35 to 50% savings for our students, depending on the major. Instead of purchasing materials a la carte, they can rent all required course materials on a flat fee basis of $360 per semester for our full-time students, so students with 12 hours or more, and $168 for part-time students, 11 credit hours and fewer. Students can also apply this textbook charge can be applied to their account so they can use financial aid to help cover the cost. All undergraduate students in Morgantown, Beckley, and Kaiser will be enrolled in the program. It is a little bit different for us. Excuse me. It's an opt-out program. Beginning on July 22nd, 30 days prior to the start of the semester, students will have the opportunity to review their materials based on their specific and selected schedule and determine whether or not it's financially a benefit to stay enrolled in the program. They'll then have 30 days through August 30th. It's actually a little bit longer than 30 days, but through August 30th to determine whether or not they'd like to remain in the program. This is just one more tool in the toolbox to provide our students the opportunity to have their materials ready and available to them by the first day of classes at an affordable rate. Not much changes for faculty and instructors. The autonomy and the decision-making authority as far as whether the content is delivered in a traditional textbook format or digitally is up to faculty and instructors. Everything is rolled into the program, regardless of how you choose to select or deliver those course materials. I put the website up, but we did launch a web page. It's on the student accounts page. There's information up there, including FAQs for students and parents and FAQs for faculty as well. And then John and I are here to answer any questions that you guys might have about the program.
Okay, hi, Kelly Watson from Eberly College. I have a bunch of questions because the last institution where I worked did a very similar thing, and it was absolutely disastrous. And so I have a lot of trepidation going into this. For one, that faculty were not consulted in any meaningful way. And again, at my last institution where this didn't go well, faculty were consulted and you had buy-in. And so here you have a system that is being sort of forced upon us. And so I have a number of like specific questions too. So you said it's an opt-out program. So are all students, regardless of their first year or second year, are they forcibly opted in? Secondly, what is the return policy? If they want to keep the book, can they? And again, at my last institution, they would rent students used books and then charge them full price if they wanted to keep the book, right? There was all sorts of logistical things in which if a student wanted to keep a text, they couldn't. And with workbooks and any sort of non-traditional materials, it was really difficult. And eventually the company started telling us how much we could spend on our books. And it is not a savings for my students in women's and gender studies. Our books are inexpensive. It might be a savings for those in like a nursing program, but also in nursing programs, there's one textbook they will often keep through several courses, and it makes all that really challenging. And that was just a bunch of statements, not a question. I recognize that. So my question, one of the questions I had is you mentioned that there's a part-time amount. So you said it's 11 credits or less. So if someone takes 3 credits, they still pay the same as someone who takes 9 credits? Seems odd to me. But I was curious in terms of the materials and the quality of the materials and used versus new and things like that. If you could just talk a little bit more about that.
Okay. So
Sorry, that
I
was a
might
lot.
ask you to repeat some questions, but we're going to start, I think, with the first one. So yes, students are enrolled in the program. It is an opt-out program. It is a cost-sharing model, correct? You are correct. And the hope is that the more students that we have enrolled in the program, the more we can negotiate better prices for that program. So the higher the participation rate, the lower we can get that price to share amongst students.
Can I
You are
quickly respond to that if you don't mind?
I'm so
Can
sorry.
I quickly respond to what you just said?
Okay, sure.
Sorry, it'll just be quick. I mean, this is not about you, right? This is just sort of a general statement that I think in a time when humanities in particular courses are being pushed out and faculty are being let go and all of these things, this harms humanities students who are taking classes because they are paying more for materials than they would be otherwise. That's just a statement
Well,
in general, not
it-
something you can fix right
It
now.
doesn't harm them because they can opt out. So it's completely up to the student to determine whether or not it's financially beneficial for them. And we did increase the opt-out period so that students have a lengthier amount of time to make that decision. But it's not harmful. A student can opt out at any point and decide this program's not for me. So there's no financial harm to any students. They have the ultimate decision-making authority as to whether or not they think this program is financially viable for them. You want to take some of the course materials content?
Sure. And just one more point on that, there is some price calculators built in during the process so they can kind of see the cost of the materials if they were to purchase them a la carte from the bookstore versus the cost of the program to just help them make a more informed decision on whether or not it makes sense for them. The bookstore staff will also be really trained to help students understand if this is a good choice for them or not. Oftentimes we'll see students that will just opt out of something and it's not a good choice to opt out because they just don't want to pay a fee. We'll help them make the right decision regardless. In terms of if they want to keep their books, this is similar to our current rental program. They can pay a buyout fee. That really is determined based on kind of things like need of the book. In terms of so any book that they rent, they can choose to keep and pay a buyout fee. Workbooks, like consumables, I guess would be the best way to put it. They're not going to be required to return stuff like that because obviously we can't use it over again. We do rent and use books in the program where possible. Part of the program is kind of a sustainability piece of it. Like this is what helps keep the cost down by reusing the materials over again. But we are flexible. If a student comes back to us and says, I don't want this used book that you gave me, we can switch it out for something else. So they do ultimately have the ability to kind of help make their decision, in that regard as well. I don't remember the other questions that you had. So
I don't know. I said a lot of things. I don't know. I think one of the questions with how much the student would have to pay to keep the book, does that depend if the book is new or used?
no, that's really not tied to that. It really is really more tied to the need of the book. So things like national usage, like that book is like available in a lot from us to get in a lot of places to source it. Like that could increase or decrease the value of the book. Our ultimate goal is to get most of the books back, continue to rent them. Because again, that's what keeps the cost down. But there is, it's a flat fee based on kind of whatever we deliver to them. So if they got a new book or a used book, it doesn't really change the price on what they would pay for a buyout. And I think I remember the other question you had asked about the company that at the other place that you were at was, it's complete academic freedom in terms of what you want to choose. Like our pricing model is never going to be determined by us going back to you and saying you must lower the cost of the content that you're choosing. This program is based completely on faculty choice in terms of what you want to use. We'll, again, and this is something we do currently, work with faculty members from the bookstore team to determine, like, are we using the right things? Like sometimes we'll have a faculty member adopt a book with an access code, but they only really need the access code. So we'll still continue to have those kind of conversations and make decisions based on what you tell us, but we're never going to force you into one option or the other.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay. Dan Totsky, Eberly College. Also, I think Eberly. So I know that it's opt-out for this. So for folks who study social science research, decision-making research, opt-outs are pretty notorious for, like, you do that when you want people to be in a thing versus opting in, because you'll have fewer people who will go through that process. And generally with opt-out, even if it's just like click a button, it's sort of another hurdle for it. And so I'm assuming it has to do with cost sharing and that idea. But if you could talk through the rationale for why to do, because I'm just gonna say, like, as someone who like sort of is familiar with like the research on the tactics, it just kind of feels icky. That's the technical term, academic term. But so if you could talk through the decision making of choosing that opt-out option rather than giving sort of the choice to opt in.
Yeah, you can start.
So I guess that question comes up a lot, like why is it opt out instead of opt in? A lot of the reason we're able to get the price down low is because we're able to provide more certainty in terms of how much we're going to deliver to students. And so we get discounts from the publishers that we then pass on in the pricing. Another part of it has to do with our sourcing. So as all of you probably know as faculty members, the bookstore does sometimes run out of books because we traditionally are ordering based on history. In this model, we're assuming that at least 85% of the students are going to stay in the program. So it gives us a better sense of what to order ahead of time. If we were to do it as an opt-in, we're kind of basically where we are right now, where they could decide to get their books, where they could decide not to. One of the kind of goals from a faculty standpoint is to make it easier for you to be able to teach from day one. That's why we call the program First Day Complete. So in this model, we're assuming that most of the people are going to now have their materials on day one of class. And that's really kind of the heart of our commitment. In this model, being an opt-out, we're going to make sure we have enough books to deliver them to everybody so that everybody that wants to be in the program at least will be ready with their materials on day one. So.
Also, I do want to address, so, I mean, you're right, opt-out makes an extra step, an extra hurdle for the students. So really the responsibility is on us as an institution to communicate that clearly, make sure that we're out ahead of that students clearly understand what that requirement looks like, what that time frame is. So we've built a pretty comprehensive communications plan not a one and done, right? We're not looking to trick anybody into this program as an institution. We'll make sure that they very clearly know what the expectation is, the timeline. And there'll be multiple communications, both from the university side of the house and Barnes and Noble College. So, but as an institution, that you're right, that responsibility is on us. It's a change. It's why we wanted to clearly communicate the expectations of the program and announce that before the students left for the semester, because we know sometimes they don't always tune in over the course of the summer. They're busy doing other things. And so we wanted to at least make sure with our current students, they were aware of the change going into the fall semester. In addition, we have a pretty extensive marketing and communications plan to educate parents and students through NSO for our first-time students, because again, it's a new program for us as an institution. So we'll have a significant presence and an opportunity to educate students and their families there as well.
That was actually going to be a follow-up question of mine is, so you said NSO, but as faculty and now as a newer undergrad advisor, mails aren't always read, you know? So if you could talk through, at least that there's a plan, but just some of the examples of some strategies you have to communicate how to go about that.
Yeah, so obviously we communicated before they left, right? And that included direct emails to students that have purchased through Barnes and Noble in the past, broad-based communications through eNews and UNews. We've communicated directly with the Parents Club. We know a lot of our students and families. Parents a lot of times are the decision makers or more informed of deadlines and decisions. So we've educated the parents as far as what that process will be. We'll have direct communication via email with them as well. When they get back on campus, because you do have until August 30th to opt out. We're running info station campaigns, and we'll have information up in and around all the bookstores when they go in. So you could pop back on campus in early to mid-August, start classes and not necessarily have made a decision, and you still have adequate time to opt out. So there'll be communications and signage in and around the bookstores when they're in so that they can make a decision at that point too. I will say that the opt-out period, it was a decision that was made by the university. It wasn't a decision by Barnes and Noble. We had several folks that consulted with us through the provost office, through financial aid, through other areas of the institution that we really thought that making sure that it went through August 30, that add drop date was really important, right? Again, they're not always paying attention to email over the course of summer. I wanted to make sure we had some time when they got back on campus that we were able to educate them and they can make an informed decision if they had completely tuned out over the course of the summer. We also have social plans. You know, sometimes we know that's the best way to get to this audience. So there'll be some targeted ads that go out through social as well. So it's pretty comprehensive. I'm not saying that we're going to be, we know we're going to have some circumstances where students say and raise their hand, I didn't know. We're going to work with them to make sure that it doesn't financially harm anybody moving into this first year. It's kind of a pilot project for us, right? We're going to learn as we go. We're going to do the best that we can. But yeah, we have a pretty extensive plan and know that getting them back on campus and being in front of them in person and not just email is an important part of that.
Well, thank you. I also hope to tune out over the summer.
Hi, Matt Valenti from the Statler College. This might be an Aaron question, but what is the university's current position and recommendation as it pertains to open education resources? So up until recently, there has been a push by HBC, the Board of Governors, and the SGA for faculty to adopt free and open resources. I do this in my class. I do it through a combination of creating my own materials and sourcing materials that are freely available to students, including books that are available through the university website in digital form that are free to students. So now, what are your recommendations? Should we abandon that effort and now adopt paying textbooks?
Nope. So that's a great question, and one that I'll say this is a collaborative approach. Again, this is one tool in the toolkit, right? But OER has a place in the textbook affordability conversation. In fact, I'm pulling together a meeting in the next week with Dean Diaz and several others who have been a part of those committees to talk about this as a collaborative effort. I will say Barnes & Noble does track, and we do ask faculty to let us know if you're using OER. There is a space for that in the platform to tell us because it is built in, and it's a consideration of the overall lowering of the cost of the flat fee to our students. So No, that priority, that initiative shouldn't shift and change. It has an important place in the overall affordability of textbooks and educational materials to our students. So I don't know if you want to add anything on that, but from a Barnes and Noble standpoint, I mean, obviously recognize that OER has a seat at the table and that priority will remain. I don't know if you guys, Mark, Paul, you guys good with that?
Yeah, I mean, really just echoing everything that Aaron said. This is a cost sharing model. We, on a yearly basis, will evaluate the cost that we're charging, and OER helps lower that cost for everybody else. So, whenever I think about OER and talk about OER, now right now you're helping your particular students. When you adopt OER in a model like this, you're actually helping more students.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Ripley Sickle in Eberly. I have a question first, and then I'm going to recognize someone to ask a question. So some of my students are access students, so they're the early college program, and they take 4 credit hours, and they're at their high school. So would they have to opt out of this too? I mean, they're under 11 credit hours.
It's undergraduate only, so the access students would not be included in this model.
Okay.
Yep, so they will not have to opt out. They would purchase their materials how they would traditionally purchase their materials.
Okay. And then I'd like to recognize Megan Light. You had some questions?
Hi, so I met with you guys when you came and spoke at the Academic Technology Committee meeting a year ago. And we had a lot of the concerns that you're all addressing here, and I want everyone to know that we were not updated, that you were actually putting this policy forward. And so to kind of see it on the website today was a little shocking. To get that news from our chair was shocking. And I think we're all upset about similar kinds of things because the truth is for art design students, they don't need this, right? They need to spend that $300 on supplies and materials. And so the concern is that they're not going to have time to opt out. So I wanted to ask though, you said August 30th is the deadline basically to opt out of the program, but how does the billing work?
So I can speak to it kind of from our perspective. So what we do is we have a census date that's set after that opt-out deadline. And we do a census that we send to WVU in terms of who we say is in the program. Then WVU has a chance to review that and then let us know if there needs to be any kind of changing in terms of the billing that we're doing them. For the student perspective, WVU is putting that bill on the student's account. I don't know the mechanics of kind of the timing and how that works and everything like that. But from our perspective, it's basically adjustable through that census date. I mean, I have this at other places where we kind of make it well into the semester because whatever extenuating circumstances do come up. We also tend to try to recommend people look at it for the entire academic journey versus kind of at a particular time in a major. Like there's probably every major at some point in time where people might not need any course materials, but when people are talking about their kind of gen ed classes, it might really benefit like a freshman student, but not a senior. And when we look at kind of opt-out rates in other places, those are the people that kind of tend to opt out. So, that's another reason why it's kind of an opt-out program. It does tend to, there's an opportunity for this to benefit everybody at some point in their academic journey. So that's why we kind of offer it as in that format.
So as a quick follow-up, is the opt-out language particularly negative? And can we look at that ahead of time? We're concerned about kind of, I think, language associated with scaring students into going into this program when the truth, they should just email a faculty advisor and say, I'm only taking 1 chem class this semester. Should I be doing this? And if that language feels like it's going to be, I don't know. I've read basically online that students are upset about the language that's being used in the opt-out feature.
So I would be happy to get that language and consult with that committee and have you guys look at that. I get, not to be repetitive, but feel the responsibility is on the university to make sure students understand what this is and what it isn't. And I would never want to put forth language that felt intentionally negative. So yes, we can follow up with that.
Thank you. I think, and I don't know if Madison is still here or not, but what the student said earlier, I mean, we're just concerned about student cost here and making sure that all of this is known and clear and fair to them.
So we've been meeting with Madison and SGA a couple Couple months, Madison? Yeah, so they're definitely looped in and have had the opportunity to provide feedback.
We're going to take a question online from Danielle Emmerling.
Thank you. Yeah, this is Danielle Emmerling from the libraries. A lot of my colleagues in the libraries work on issues of textbook affordability and have engaged in, promoting open educational resources quite a bit. But to my knowledge, no one in the libraries was engaged before this was rolled out. So I'm glad to hear you'll be meeting with Dean Diaz, but do you have some other thoughts on how you might engage the libraries going forward to promote OERs as part of this toolbox? Thank you.
Yep. So I actually met with Dean Diaz last week, and I believe she met with the provost office prior to meeting with me, and Mark Gavin connected us. Dean Diaz is a part of the meeting that we're pulling together multiple initiatives to really talk about how this is just a piece in the overall puzzle. And so based on the conversation that we had, I believe it was last Thursday or Friday, looking to kind of form like an ad hoc, textbook affordability committee that the libraries will have continued representation on. And again, like I said, one tool in the toolbox, we need to make sure that we're leaving space for OER and making sure that provost office, First Day Complete, Barnes and Noble, and others are a part of that conversation. So it's a collaborative approach, and we look forward to continuing to work with Dean Diaz.
Sally Lucci, School of Medicine. I'd like to recognize Stephanie Young, who has a question. Thank you.
Hi, Stephanie Young, Director of the Foundational STEM Collaborative, Everly College. Our faculty are very invested in making sure that we are selecting the right materials for our students, for our classes, but also making affordable options. So I've had many faculty from our STEM courses inside of Everly College that are concerned that items that they may have already selected may not be included in the program. But we do have other questions coming our way. First of all, are recommended versus required textbooks treated any differently in the program?
Yes. Yeah, only required textbooks are included in the flat fee. So if it is a recommended piece of material, it is not in the flat 360 for full-time or 168 for part-time.
Thank you. What about lab manuals that students will be writing in that cannot be returned? Are those additional on top of the fee?
Nope, it's all included. So traditional textbook, lab material or lab manuals, digital access codes, all of that is included in the flat fee.
Even though that's something a student would not be able to use again?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And finally, because our faculty do have all faculty have unique ideas for their own courses. If there's software or something that we are concerned may not be covered by the program, can you direct us to whom we may be able to contact?
Yeah, so I believe we actually have an FAQ on the webpage for faculty that directs them. We set up a vanity email account that goes to a group of us at the institution and the Barnes and Noble team. I will pull it. I don't have it in front of me, but I'll pull it and get it to you before I step out of the room today. But all questions can be sent there, and there's a team that will work with faculty to help identify whether or not that would be included.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cindy Graves, School of Medicine. So my question is, a lot of the students don't even know what they're going to take until up to the day that they come to campus. Sometimes they enroll in a class even after the first day of class. So how flexible is this program for working with them and getting the right textbooks? And then my second question is, if someone has paid their tuition in full and then they decide to opt out, how easy is it going to be for them to get a refund?
So I'm going to take the second question first. So this is an independent fee outside of tuition. So if they paid tuition in full, this fee isn't going to be applied until they pick up their textbooks. And so we're working with the Student Financial Services team to make sure that the timing is right on that. And part of that is flexibility, right? We know students come to campus, make changes to their schedules, will add and drop courses, and we want to make sure that they have the current and most reflective materials for their schedule. So that's part of why the date of August 30th was determined, which is the add drop date for the fall 24 semester, so that if a student does pick up course materials and then would change their schedule afterwards, they will receive an email notification once the bookstore receives the schedule change feed from the university to bring that textbook or course material that's no longer required back to swap it out for the materials that they would need for their current course schedule. And then, was there another question? I'm sorry, I forgot. The tuition question, yeah. Which, like I said, that the university is actually will receive a feed from Barnes and Noble based on the students who have picked up their course materials, and that is how Student Financial Services will know when to bill the students and what to bill them.
I'll just add, that speaks a little bit to like the why is it an opt out instead of an opt in. We're actually we're bringing in enough books to anticipate kind of things like that. People do make schedule changes all the time. That's not unusual, obviously. People drop classes, add classes. We're getting a feed basically multiple times a day from WVU telling us if people are making those kind of changes and sending out communications back to students kind of in line with that same cadence. So people aren't going to be waiting a long time when something like that changes. And, if someone decides that this doesn't really work for them, that fee is more than what they need to buy, and they still want to just buy one book from the bookstore, we're going to have enough books for everybody so they can still come in and just buy that one book off the shelf as well. So this doesn't stop that from happening either. So we'll have those books available, regardless of whether you're in the program or not.
Good afternoon, Eugenia Peña Yevtoev, Davis College. I've kind of wonder, how sustainable is this program? I see what my students do, and they're very, very smart on finding good textbook at almost no cost. That would be the first thing. And then that I think I worry about the sustainability. I worry about how they will look for new students. I need to pay another fee because that's how they will see it. How is that going to help recruiting and retention? So, and I don't know if you have not talked about that, but I'm as a student, if I see this, I just start to run away. So are you doing something helping with recruiting, for example? But the first question, is this sustainable?
Yeah, from a sustainability standpoint, I mean, this program, we've been doing it now, across the country for kind of 7 years. Started off really at one institution. We're going to be at like 200 institutions doing something like this, so it does continue to grow. In terms of how institutions kind of look at it, that's always kind of one of the big things they grapple with. We're adding another fee versus something else. And I think the way we talk about it is you're giving kind of more price transparency. A lot of times people show up on campus and they know how much it costs to go to WVU, but they have no idea about all these other things that they're going to have to pay for. Now, ahead of time, parents are going to know this is how much it's going to cost to get all this other things I need for my student. And we look at it as a positive in terms of showing them exactly what they're going to need. You can use it for financial aid, which really streamlines that whole process. So again, it kind of helps them pay for those materials versus kind of what they're doing now. And really, frankly, like we do a lot of surveying, and the things that you hear from students is like, I just tried to wing it for my class because I couldn't afford that book. We don't really want that. That's not good for anybody. We don't want students to have to share because they couldn't afford it. I mean, I think about my own academic journey. There was times where I didn't buy the book because I just didn't have the money as a student. A program like this makes sure that students are prepared with what they need on the first day of class. It's always kind of hard when you're talking about a fee and like, is that going to be something that's going to scare people away? But I've heard so many times over the years, just as a bookstore employee, people say, why is this not just part of my bill? So I think there is also a desire for it to be charged in that way as well. So definitely a question that requires like a lot of thought. But when you talk about like the communication plan and education, talking to parents, talking to students about kind of what's best for them, it kind of helps overcome some of those things that could possibly be, a negative associated with fee.
Thank you both. We appreciate you answering all the questions, and I did make a number of notes on things to follow up on, so we'll work on those as well. Next, we have a report from Travis Mollahan, Kevin Semino from the General Counsel's Office, and Corey Ferris, Dean of Students, to give an update on implementation plans for compliance with the West Virginia campus carry law, which goes into effect July 1st.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. A number of these slides we'll move through very quickly because we've presented this in a number of sessions, including our recent Campus Carry Campus Conversation. Part of this also we presented previously at this Faculty Senate a few months ago. Just as a reminder, we have a steering committee that's guiding us on a number of areas of campus, on campus safety. Sharon Martin and I are chairing a subcommittee. A number of faculty, staff, students from across campus are a part of this. We are looking at 4 different subcommittees for our campus safety steering committee. Those 4 subcommittees are making recommendations to the steering committee. And quickly going through those 4 subcommittees, there's a Morgantown partnership chaired by Ron Justice and Aaron Neumeyer. They're working with our off-campus partners, really focusing on the downtown campus area and the downtown Morgantown area for campus safety, though we're looking at some broader areas across campus, including crosswalks and things like that. There's a campus safety committee looking at on-campus safety. Carrie Showalter is leading that. Thank you to many of you that filled out the UPD campus survey a few months ago. We're using information that we've received from that to help guide this committee as well as other things UPD is doing. April Call is chairing our communication committee subcommittee as we look at all this data that's coming at us and material on campus carry information that's coming at us, and how do we share this in a variety of ways all across campus. And the 4th subcommittee is campus carry. As you know, that legislation passed last year, and we'll pass this off to Travis to talk a little bit and provide some updates on campus carry.
Thank you, Corey. Good afternoon, everyone. As Corey mentioned, the Campus Carry Subcommittee is one of the 4 subcommittees of the larger Campus Safety Steering Group. As you can see here, it's represented by a cross-section of our campuses and our programs, including students, faculty, and staff, Ruth Center, CAC, Extension Services, Facilities, General Counsel's Office, Government Relations, Health Sciences, the WVU Medicine Hospital System, our libraries, and our Provost's Office, Research, Student Life, Student Housing, Talent and Culture, University Relations, UPD, the Visitor Center, and our campuses at Beckley and Kaiser. We've been meeting since last October, and we have been reviewing the bill, talking about concerns, questions, and preparing for implementation. So as many of you all remember, last year we presented following the passage of Senate Bill 10, which passed the West Virginia legislature overwhelmingly and was signed by the governor into law, which allows a person to carry a concealed pistol or revolver on the grounds of an institution of higher education, with some exceptions, if that person has a current and valid license to carry a concealed deadly weapon. It does not permit open carry. Because the institution is a state agency, we are required by the act itself to adhere to the Campus Self-Defense Act. What the legislature passed and the governor signed into law, however, was simply a bill that permitted concealed carry licenses, concealed carry license holders to carry concealed on our campus. It provided the ability for the institutions themselves to further restrict the carrying of those concealed weapons in about 12 areas. And we'll go through those exceptions, which our Board of Governors all adopted. And as I said, as an institution, we are required to adhere to it, and it applies to all of our campuses, Morgantown, Beckley, Kaiser, and our health sciences campuses in Charleston, Martinsburg, and Bridgeport. So what are the exceptions? When the board adopted its rule, which it had to as the rulemaking authority of the institution, it took into consideration and took advantage of the 12 exceptions that the legislature allowed it to consider. So what we've been going through is the same thing that Marshall, Shepherd, all the other state institutions of higher education have been going through. And so the board rule includes 12 exceptions, and we'll talk through some examples of these areas here in just a moment. But as you can see, we've got those listed there, starting with at an organized event taking place at a stadium or arena with a capacity of more than 1,000 spectators, at a daycare facility located on WVU's property, in the secure area of any building used by university police or other law enforcement agency on WVU's property, in an area that has adequate security measures to ensure pistols or revolvers are not to be carried by the public into the area. You'll see the second part, any such area designated by the university under this exception will provide reasonable notice to the public and campus community. That will come up more. We'll talk about signage and what notice is. It's also important here to note that the law is very specific of what adequate security measure means. That means an armed officer and some type of metal detector or metal detecting wand. The fifth exception is in an on-campus room or rooms in which a student or employee disciplinary proceeding is being held. The sixth is in sole occupancy offices, but only in those offices where the sole occupant notifies those who may be entering that concealed pistols and revolvers are prohibited. So that's where signage, other notifications will come into play. It's very important to realize here the sole occupancy office in the legislation, in the law is clearly defined. That is a room with 4 walls that extend from the floor to the ceiling, has a door that can be closed, and is assigned to one single individual. Our seventh exception is at a primary or secondary education school-sponsored function being held in a specific location on WVU's property that is rented, leased, or under the exclusive use of the West Virginia Department of Education, the West Virginia Secondary Schools Activities Commission, a county school board, or a local public school when the function is occurring. You can imagine if Mon County Schools decides to use this facility could be off limits. Our eighth exception is at a private function that is being held in a specific location on WVU's property that is rented, leased, or under exclusive use of any entity when the function is occurring. All right, our final 4 exceptions include in any WVU property where possession of a firearm is prohibited by state or federal law. When Kevin gives you some information about examples, we'll talk about what are some of those areas where state or federal law prevents firearms from already being carried. Our 10th exception is in specifically designated areas in which patient care or mental health counseling is being provided. Our 11th is in high hazardous and animal laboratories, which are defined by the Campus Self-Defense Act. Again, we have to provide notice, and the law is very specific about what a high hazardous and animal laboratory is. And then the final is in on-campus residence halls, except a person can carry in a lounge, dining area, or study area. An employee who can legally carry who enters a residence hall, however, can also carry. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin to walk you through some examples of these exceptions.
Thank you, Frank. And thank you, Travis. So now that we've gone through the specifics, I just want to highlight a few ways that the university is going to put this into practice. You got several examples here. I just want to touch on a few of them. I'll start with the first one. Is at an organized event taking place at a stadium or arena with a capacity of more than 1,000 spectators. Got 4 elements there. So that means all the intercollegiate athletics events and games that take place at WVU Coliseum or Milan Puskar Stadium, where the concerts or shows at the Clay Theater in the Creative Arts Center. This does not mean that concealed pistols or revolvers are prohibited at all times in those areas. Rather, it's just when the event is taking place, which means when the when the gates or the doors are open. One exception that's not on here that I do want to mention that Travis touched on is the adequate security measures. UPD, as the university safety and security experts, in consultation with other administrators, will determine when those are necessary based on the specific facts and circumstances and best practices. So, an example of that is Fall Fest. It takes place in front of the towers. It's not a stadium arena, but the public entrances fit the definition in that there are armed personnel and electronic equipment there. So some of the others listed here are pretty self-explanatory. I did want to mention the areas where possession is prohibited by federal or state law. Anytime the federal government has a lease, firearms are prohibited in that area. So an example of that would be Eagles Place, where there's a National Guard recruiting office. An example of a state law that would apply is on a premises where there is a court of law. So when the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals comes to the College of Law to have proceedings and cases that would fall under that exception. I highlight real quick the high hazardous and animal laboratories. Just provided a few examples of buildings. That's not an exclusive list. There are others. In the next few weeks, we plan to have a map and a list of those available of those areas where it is exempt. I did want to give a sneak peek. Dusty Hayes from our real estate office has been working really hard and done a phenomenal job to put together a map. There'll be one for Morgantown, one for Beckley, and one for Kaiser. And it's designed to do three things. First, it's designed to identify what areas are part of campus and which are not. Remember, this is the Campus Self-Defense Act, and it applies to buildings on the campus. It applies on the campus and in the buildings. And so it's important to identify which areas are and are not campus, because those areas that are not campus, the general prohibition to deadly weapons and dangerous objects would apply just like it does now. And so the light blue shaded area would designate what is campus. Second, the map is designed to bring your attention to those areas that you need to be aware of. When looking at the map, you can see the yellow would be the areas of temporary exempt where there could be an event going on. The pink are areas where there might be a designated patient care or a high hazardous or animal laboratory. And that sort of leads to the third goal of the map, and that's to list the specific rooms or areas. So there'll be a hyperlink in there that'll take you to the list, that'll cover each building. So again, we're in the process of fine tuning this, and it'll be made available in the near future. I've already gone through based on some comments that we received from the Faculty Senate Executive Meeting to clarify some of the categories, adjust some of the language in the legend to make it a little bit more precise. To the extent once these things are made available, if anyone has any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. The FAQ, last FAQ has a specific email address. That's safety@mail.wvu.edu. And we'll do our best to get back to you as soon as we can. With that, I'll turn it back over to Corey very quickly.
Just a few quick bits of information on the resources and safety measures. We talked about the secure lockers in our residence halls. Just to let you know, we will have 2 rooms in 2 different residence halls. One will be in Summit Hall. The other one will be in Brook Tower for students to sign up for individual lockers to store their firearm. We will have metal detectors. Yes.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. If you all could please stay. I know we're up against time. We have a motion that's going to come for a syllabus statement resolution related to this, and we moved it back. We're 6 senators away from losing quorum. If we do that, we won't have that syllabus statement available for summer instruction. So if you could just hang with us, and I think you guys are trying to wrap it up, I would really appreciate it. Excuse me.
Thank you, Frankie. Yes. Picking back up, we'll have metal detectors at some of those large events, as well as designated events by university police. Kevin just went over the facilities maps that will be coming, and you're going to be voting on syllabus statement coming up. UPD has already started some de-escalation training, active shooter training. We'll have other training available. They've always had that available, but they will continue to add those resources and offer that training. We have made contact with the U.S. Attorney's Office and other law enforcement partners at other schools to understand how they've implemented, and as we continue to go into this move in this direction, just with some national guidelines and best practices. And the other thing that's coming up will be signage. Each person that has, well, let me first by saying the signage will look like this on the far right. This will be our standard sign that you will see all across campus. The signs will be larger or smaller, just depending on where you're physically located. So these will be the signs that if you want to have this posted at your sole occupancy office, You'll be able to go and make that request. Those that don't care whether someone carries in their office doesn't need to do anything. Their office will remain unmarked. You can find that and you can complete that online form now to request that. So that sign will be up by July 1. If that's what you'd like, you can go again to our safety.wvu.edu website /campus carry and look under those FAQs to fill out that request. Also, we've got a video there with Travis talking about campus carry. So with that, Frankie, we'll turn it back to you. Sorry we moved quickly, but we will be able to take questions.
Yes, we can take questions. I'm wondering, are you all going to hang with us for this? Because either that or we can hold questions and let us go through the motion from Marina and then ask questions.
If you want, actually, I have it's only sort of a question. It's more just a suggestion or
Okay.
a thing like that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Scott Critchlow, Eberly. A couple of the things that y'all noted, I think a lot of us would like a little bit more detail on. If you could kind of tell us, say things like when the disciplinary hearings and the kind of hour, it looks like you sort of say the hours that they're going on was when they would occur. Like if things like that could be a little bit better detailed, like what that means. Some of the things are just like basically time dependent. And so like, one of my friends sitting in the row works at museums. If there's like a high school or grade school people at the museum, like what does it mean to sort of say, like what is the time when they can't be there if you're not entirely sure when the kids will be going into the museum, like those kinds of things. So just I'd say, if you could give us more detail on things that are kind of time dependent, a little bit unclear, that would really help us to navigate all this. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Also, just to let you know, there is a procedure coming that we've asked for that has detailed steps to take should a faculty member see an inadvertent exposure. Obviously, wielding a gun is a 911 call, but that will be coming out soon. So if it falls out of a backpack on the floor or somebody's shirt rises up and you see it, we've asked for those procedures and we've gotten them and we thank you for that. So that will be coming. I'm sorry to have rushed you all along, but at this time I'm going to give it over to Marina to talk about the syllabus statement.
Okay, thank you everybody for holding until the end. I'm going to be very brief. So if you notice, there was an exception, the exception number 6 from the BOG 5.14 about the campus carry. And it says that if we have a sole occupancy, we have to notify that actually we don't want that weapon in the office. So this is what TACO has designed. It is a statement that you faculty that are having a sole occupancy, again, that is because we have to follow the BOG rule, can use in the syllabi to clarify and notify the students that they don't want a concealed pistol or revolver. Again, we have to follow the wording from the BOG, that they don't want that in their office when the student come for any meeting at their office space. So with this, I am going to be opening the motion for a vote in favor for including, again, this is optional for those faculty that wants to clarify and do not want to have the concealed weapon in their office. So I move the motion for a vote.
Motion on the floor. And just to clarify, Marina, this is because the law says you must give advance notice, correct?
Absolutely. So the reason for the rush is because this BOG is going to be for this summer semester, right? So we want to really protect or give that option to faculty that are about to start the new semester. So that way is there in the syllabi. Again, it's optional. Faculty choose to have it and notify the students on the first day of class, so everybody has clear expectations. Any other questions?
Any discussion? And this has been vetted by legal as well, I do want to say, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we also have met also with the Indian team, also with the presenters, as well as with Diane Davis, that was one of the faculty that was in the committee that it was mentioned before. So yes, we have been covered by everybody.
Thank you, Marina. I know you always do quality work, so that was really just to have you say it out loud. All those in favor of passing the optional syllabus statement, please raise your hands. 13 online, please lower your hands. Any opposed? None online. Thank you. The motion carries and the optional syllabus statement has been approved, and we will disseminate that. And if you all will also please share with your constituents that this is coming and will be available to them, as well as the sticker for their office, or the signage for their office. They can go ahead and put that in. I would suggest we put those in, all of us who want them, as soon as possible, because I'm just thinking there's going to be an awful lot of those, and that's going to take them a while. We have one more agenda, a significant agenda item, and let me tell you what it is and give you an option. Does that sound reasonable? Because it's 5:17. So what was on our agenda next was a report from Mark Gavin, and it was a summary. It was not going to be a detail of every single solitary report, but the reports of the deans, the health sciences school, all the administrative offices, the provost office, and the president's office. We can drive on and we can hear Mark's presentation, or if without objection, we are going to be posting those reports. We could table that item, and we have a couple of other things I need to announce and then wrap up. Any discussion on that? Any objection to tabling the report and we're going to have the things available online? Any objection? Used a Roberts technical rule that I shouldn't have. Technically, it's not tabled. It's just not going to be done. There's a technical word for that. Ixnay on the report, Ray. Okay, Mark, thank you. My apologies for that. I know people are pressed. I do want to announce, yes, ma'am. Yes, please. You can email them to me if you're more comfortable putting them in through the Faculty Senate Contact Us portal. You could put them in there, and then I can follow up on any questions we get, and we can send those back out and post them on the Faculty Senate page under the news and announcements. We're still posting things there, by the way. Okay, thank you. Good question. All right, so we have been in our election cycle, as you know. And somewhere here, one of these pages. Yes, ma'am. That's after the, that's after, yep. Okay. Faculty Senate Chair gods are not with me at the moment. Okay, here we go. All right, so we've been in our election cycle, as you know. That is all now complete. First, for Chair-elect, please join me in congratulating Scott Critchlow as Senate Chair-elect. Scott will also serve a 2-year term on BOG in this cycle, beginning next year. Diana has already begun working with Scott on his transition into the role, and his position will be official as of July 1. Next, for the faculty representative to the Board of Governors, in election by acclamation since running unopposed, please join me in congratulating Leslie Cottrell. Leslie's 2-year term will begin on July the 1st. The election for new executive committee members is complete, and those elected are Cindy Graves, School of Medicine; Emily Murphy, College of Applied Human Sciences; Andrew Nix, Statler College, Eugenia Pena Uatui. Did I say that right? Davis, Lauren Prinzo Extension, Jennifer Ripley Stukel, Eberly, and Matthew Totola College of Law. A list of those elected can also be found in Annex 6. Finally, the senator elections are also now complete, and you can find the list of all the newly elected senators with terms beginning July 1st in Annex 7. And I'd like to thank Corey for all of his hard work on the elections. There was a lot of moving parts, especially this year. Is there any new business? Hearing none, before we adjourn today, I do want to say it really has been an honor to represent the faculty of Senate Chair this year. It's been an unusual and difficult year, and we are weathered from it. I am weathered from it. But we serve where we find ourselves, and I can say, despite the challenges, this experience has been one of the most rewarding and enlightening of my professional career. I'm incredibly grateful for the constant support and hard work of Diana Davis, Scott Wayne, Dave, who I think has left for a 3-year-old run, Eloise and Stan, and I think I skipped Scott. How could I skip Scott? It's Scott and Corey. I literally think I might not have survived with all of you. We had so many decisions to make along the way. There's always quite a few, but this year had a lot of decisions. And that group has really helped us, I think, come to what I hope is the best decisions we could have. We thank you also to our parliamentarian, Marjorie McDermott, who was pressed into service when our former parliamentarian flew the coop off to a sabbatical. Thank you, Marjorie. You've been so helpful. Committee chairs, where are committee chairs? Any of them still left in here? Okay, right. So we thank you all for your hard work, and the real work of the Senate happens in the committees. And we need you all to continue to serve and encourage your colleagues to serve. There's so much more opportunities and so much more we're going to need to do in the coming year. I'm also grateful for the engagement and collaboration of President Gee, Provost Reed and her team, and many other administrators that I and the leadership team have worked with throughout the year. Again, it's been very difficult. There have been some real moments, but I appreciate that you've remained at the table and that we've remained at the table. Finally, I'd like to thank my wife, Dr. Gina Morrow, for her patience and her listening and her unwavering belief in me. If you serve and have a significant other, they also serve. It's tradition that the incoming faculty Senate chair adjourn the last meeting of the year. So at this time, I invite Diana Davis to come to the podium. Diana's been amazing this year, attending countless meetings. She represented the faculty on the Campus Carry initiative. She provided wise counsel, as I said, on the seemingly endless stream of decisions and plans we had to make. Support's been invaluable. I'm so grateful. And it will be my pleasure to work with you again next year. And I know you're going to be a steadfast and strong voice and advocate for the faculty. And so with all confidence, I present you with the gavel, and please adjourn the meeting. Adjourn.